Hi, everybody. Today we're going to learn about the U.S. Supreme Court. Here's the U.S. Supreme Court building. It's right behind the Capitol building. If you've ever been to D.C., maybe you've seen it. Yeah, let's get into it. All right. So the Supreme Court has final appellate jurisdiction on any federal case in the United States, which means they're the court of last resort for federal offenses. If you lose in the U.S. Supreme Court, there's no other courts to appeal to because that's it. That's as high as the pyramid goes. So, U.S. district courts have original jurisdiction. The Court of Appeals here appeals. And if you lose there, this is your last shot, the U.S. Supreme Court. So, the Supreme Court, remember, has the power of judicial review. They have to say what is and what is not constitutional. Really important court. It is the U.S. Supreme Court. So, there are 9 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court, and that's just a fancy word for judges. The Chief Justice is the leader of the court. He has the power to make decisions along with the other justices, the associate justice. But I don't want you to think that the Chief Justice has more power than the other justices, just has more responsibilities. So the Chief Justice has to do extra things like swearing in the president when they're inaugurated or being the judge during an impeachment trial. John Roberts is the current Chief Justice of the United States right there. Now, how do they get their jobs? Well, justices are appointed by the president. So here's President Obama. He appointed Sonia Sotomayor to be on the U.S. Supreme Court. But before she got the job, she had to sit for an interview with these senators, answer all their questions, and they vote on her whether or not to approve her to get the job. She got the job, and now she has the job for life or until she retires. Now, technically there's 3 ways you can lose your job as a federal judge. You can die. If you die, you're no longer a federal judge, obviously. You can retire. You can voluntarily give it up. Or you can be fired through impeachment. It's not common, but it is more common that judges get impeached and removed than presidents do. But yeah, so federal judges can be fired through impeachment. Now it's got to be something really serious, like you broke the law, something very, very serious. Not just because you made a decision that was unpopular or that people just don't like you. If they can prove that you broke the law, then you might get impeached. Now there's 4 Fed documents you need to know. Fed 78 is one of them, and that's the one that talks about the courts. And an important thing you need to know about Fed 78 is that Alexander Hamilton argued that these federal judges should be insulated or protected from public opinion. The idea being that we don't want judges to make decisions that are necessarily politically popular. We want justices to make decisions that are legally correct. And one way to make sure that you get legally correct decisions is to separate the politics from the decisions that judges should make. So, how do these justices get insulated from public opinion? Well, they serve for life. They don't have to run for re-election. They don't have to keep the people happy. They don't have to worry about their making a decision that will cost them their job. They're appointed. They're not elected, so they don't have to convince the people that they're the right person for the job. They get picked, and then they just do what they think is right. Now, how do justices protect their political independence? Well, they deliberate in secret. So all the stuff that goes on at the Supreme Court is really kept from public view. There's no recordings allowed in the courtroom, so they don't have to worry about how they look on TV and all that stuff. They don't have to worry about cases being played on TV that night. They don't have to ham it up for the cameras. They just have to act like a judge. They can control the docket. The Supreme Court only takes the cases they want to hear. So they only have to take the cases they want to hear. They get like 10,000 cases appealed to them every year. And out of that 10,000 cases, they take between 80 or 90 cases per year. So the Supreme Court is really important, but they do want to be independent from politics. So here's the most recent group picture of the U.S. Supreme Court. But since this picture was taken, Justice Stephen Breyer has since resigned, and he's been replaced by new Justice Ketanji Brown, and that's as good as my Photoshop uh, abilities will allow me. But I'm actually kind of proud of it. Not too shabby. So anyway, yeah, there's your 9 justices. So here's the inside of the Supreme Court. Somebody snuck a picture of the Supreme Court. Here's where the justices sit. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yep, 9 seats here on the bench. Yeah. So here's the Roberts Court. You can see there's a 6-3 Republican appointee advantage over the Democratic appointees. They call this the Roberts Court. Often, we name courts after who the Chief Justice happens to be. So now we call it the Roberts Court because he's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So here you go. Here's your 9 justices. There's the Chief Justice and 8 associate justices. And here's how they got their jobs. The one that's been there the longest is Clarence Thomas. He was appointed by President George H.W. Bush, confirmed 52 to 48. You got George W. Bush appointed now Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Samuel Alito. President Barack Obama appointed Justice Sonia Sotomayor to be on the court and Elena Kagan. And President Donald Trump got Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett on the bench. And the newest member of the Supreme Court is Justice Ketanji Brown, um, the fifth woman on the court and the first black woman ever to be on this U.S. Supreme Court. She was confirmed 53 to 47 in the Senate. There you go. Now, justices are insulated from political opinion, but that doesn't mean that they're not political. So, on the political spectrum, you can see there's definitely a right wing advantage, a Republican or conservative advantage on the bench. There's 3 liberals to 6 conservatives currently on the U.S. Supreme Court. So, here's what the Constitution says about appointing Supreme Court justices. He, meaning the president, shall have the power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, consent being the really important word there. The senators get to vote on the presidential nominees. So to nominate judges of the Supreme Court. So the president picks the judges, but he's got to get the consent, the approval from the Senate before they take their job. Now, what are some factors that will influence Supreme Court nominations? What's going through presidents' minds when they're picking a federal judge? Well, it's often a very contentious fight. And so the president will nominate somebody, but then they get questioned by the Senate for a long, long time, and often a very political fight because once they have their job, they're there for life. So this is the one shot that Congress has to really challenge these judges before we're stuck with them forever. So presidents want to pick somebody that's ideologically similar to themselves. So, if a justice, if a justice retires, the president's going to want to pick somebody that's similar to themselves politically and ideologically, right? Also, justices, when they're thinking about retiring, should think about if you're a Democratic judge, you want to retire when there's a Democratic president, so you get replaced by a fellow Democrat. If you're a Republican judge, you probably want to wait until there's a Republican president so you can be replaced with a Republican judge. So here's some factors that influence Supreme Court nominations. Presidents consider a lot of things, but here's some important things they consider. Obviously, party identification. If you're a Democratic president, you're going to pick a Democratic judge to be a federal judge. Political ideology. If you're a very liberal Democratic president, you're going to want to probably pick a very liberal political judge just like you. If you're a very conservative president, you're probably going to want to pick a very conservative judge that has your political ideology. Also, you probably care about their judicial philosophy, and we're going to talk about that in the next topic. But if you feel like it's the justice's job to have a more hands-off approach, if you believe in judicial restraint, you probably want to pick somebody that shares that same judicial philosophy. If you believe that judges should make bold decisions that change the course of America, you believe in judicial activism, you probably pick judicial activist judge. Qualifications, obviously, if you're the president, you want to pick somebody that's qualified, who has experience, somebody you don't want to embarrass yourself and pick somebody that's not politically qualified. Age, you want to pick somebody young, right? Because whoever you pick has the job for life. You want them to be around as long as possible to use that to your advantage. So you want to try to pick somebody that's relatively young. You don't want to pick a Supreme Court justice that's 80 that might only stick around for 2 years, Gender. So there's been a big move towards balancing the courts. For almost all of American history, every judge until the 1980s was a white man. Well, now we want to. It's been more of a consideration for presidents to try to make sure that we balance the court gender wise and race wise. But the most important factors of these that I just mentioned are party identification and political ideology are the most important factors. Remember, whoever the president picks to be a judge, that judge is going to be there for a long, long time. Long after the president's gone, these justices will still be around. So it's a very important decision the president makes. Now let's talk about the role of party, race, and gender. Ronald Reagan appointed fewer minorities. Republicans generally do, but he was the first person to appoint a woman to the U.S. Supreme Court. Sandra Day O'Connor was the first woman ever to be U.S. Supreme Court justice. She was a federal judge from Arizona. Reagan made her the first pick. Barack Obama appointed more women and more minorities than any other president until Joe Biden. Joe Biden has nominated a very diverse group of justices to the federal bench. Democratic appointees typically appoint people that are more in support of civil liberties in the area of privacy issues like abortion and government spying and protecting the rights of the accused and free speech. Republican appointees tend to pick judges that are pro Second Amendment, more in favor of gun rights, and more in favor of taking cases on religious freedom grounds. A few justices first that are kind of interesting. William Howard Taft was president of the United States, but he always wanted to be a federal judge, and after being president of the United States, became chief justice after being president. Thurgood Marshall was the first black justice to ever be appointed. He was a lawyer in the cases or in the case of Brown versus Board of Education, and ended up becoming a Supreme Court justice. There's Justice Sonia Sotomayor, or sorry, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg with Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. I meant to say, who was the first woman to be on the bench, followed by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who just died recently, and now there's Elena Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, and Amy Coney Barrett, and Ketanji Brown. So actually, that brings the total up to 6 women that have been on the U.S. Supreme Court. More factors that a president considers when picking a judge. Some issues to consider a litmus test. What's that about? So there are some issues, some very specific issues that are very controversial, like abortion. So if you're a Republican judge, you're probably going to want to pick a judge that's if you're a Republican that's a pro-life judge, you're probably going to want to pick somebody that's against abortion. If you're a Democratic judge, you're probably going to pick somebody that's pro-choice on that specific issue. Cultivating political support. You might want to pick somebody that's going to broaden your political appeal and help you politically in the next election. You want to pick somebody, if you're struggling with women voters, maybe picking a woman might be politically advantageous to you, right? Political favors. You might have previously made some promises to some senators with the promise that, hey, I'll vote for your package, your political package, but I want you to pick this judge that I like. That might happen behind the scenes. Interest group input. There are some interest groups that pay very close attention to the whole federal judge process and who are federal judges. Some of those groups have a lot of power when it comes to influencing who the president might pick. Like the Federalist Society, for example, is very influential in helping Republican presidents pick federal judges. The American Bar Association certifies lawyers, and they give input on federal judges, and they talk about their qualifications and whether or not the American Bar Association feels that they're qualified for the job. You want to pick somebody that can get approved. It would be pretty embarrassing if you pick somebody that can't get through the Senate. And also remember, if you're a Republican president with a Democratic Senate, it's going to be a lot harder to get your picks through. If you're a Democratic president with a Republican Senate, it's definitely going to make it much harder to get your nominees through. So here's the process, how the nomination process works. The president picks a candidate, and then the Senate Judiciary Committee reviews that candidate, asks them questions for hours over a period of days, and then the Judiciary Committee votes on the nominee right there. Then the Judiciary Committee sends their recommendation to the full Senate. If the Judiciary Committee voted yes, then the Senate will have a full hearing, and then the full Senate votes. And it now requires only 51 votes to confirm a nominee. It used to take filibuster-proof supermajority of 60 votes, but now you only need 51 votes to get your nominee confirmed. So there you go. So here it is. Stage 1, the president asks his team to submit a short list. And he doesn't have time to look at every federal judge or every judge in America and make his pick. So he asks his team to send him a short list. And from that short list, the president will pick a name out of there. Now, the FBI will do a background investigation onto all these picks to make sure there's nothing bad in their background that the president might not know about. Candidates have to submit their financial disclosure forms and send the president and the FBI all of their financial documents. That way we know that, these judges aren't in debt to somebody or might be financially beholden to somebody, or make sure there's nothing bad financially in their background. The American Bar Association will grade candidates. So the American Bar Association will give them a score and say whether or not they believe they're qualified or not qualified. Different interest groups will weigh in on the candidates. Like I was mentioning before, the Federalist Society is really, really influential in helping Republican presidents pick who their nominees are. And after all that, ultimately it's down to the president. The president picks who he wants to be the nominee. Here's President Trump announcing that he's chosen Amy Coney Barrett to be a member of the Supreme Court. That's stage 1. Stage 2, it goes to the Congress, specifically the Senate. So the Senate Judiciary Committee, here's the Judiciary Committee meeting. Here's this happened to be, who is that? I'm going to look closely. That is, Justice Brett Kavanaugh. He was, here he is being questioned by the Senate Judiciary Committee. They ask him a whole bunch of questions about things. and then the Judiciary Committee votes on whether or not they should go on to step 3. Now, this is a very contentious process. This questioning process is aired on TV. Stuff that happens in the Supreme Court, that's all kept private, and there's no TV cameras allowed. But in the Congress, it's definitely allowed. It's all over TV. It's a pretty exciting thing. And then the committee votes yes or no. Then it goes to the full Senate for a vote, not just the few senators that are on the committee. The entire Senate gets to vote, and all you need is 51 votes now. So, for example, who's this? Amy Coney Barrett. She was confirmed 52 to 48. Got all of the Republican votes and 2 Democratic senators' votes, so she got the job. And then stage 4, that nominee that's been confirmed by the Senate takes the oath of office, and that's how you become a U.S. federal Supreme Court judge. All right. Now, what if Congress is not in session? Very last thing. If the Congress is not in session, the president can appoint somebody to be a federal judge. But if the Senate's not available to have their hearings and vote on the candidate, well, then that judge will have the job for just 1 year, and they have to be reconfirmed, or they have to be confirmed by the Senate once the Senate is back in session in order to stay in power. That's called a recess appointment. So presidents can temporarily fill judgeships for up to a year if Congress isn't in session. But yeah, so that's it. I hope all that made sense. I'll see you in class.